So how cold is too cold for an American Akita? In this video, we're going to give you 3 facts. Number 1, actual temperatures, the high end, the medium range, and the low end. Number 2, factors that affect that temperature range and the American Akita. And number 3, the actual American Akita breed and what makes them so good for cold weather temperatures. So temperatures, how cold is too cold for an American Akita? I think temperatures are depending on the Akita themselves and the owners and where you live, environment, a lot of different variables. 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius. I would say that's your start point. That is your start point of when you need to start being concerned about the weather. For us, for Chewy and I. Now the middle ground, I would say, where it's not too cold for us, but it's definitely concernable, would be right around 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And that is minus 15 degrees Celsius. Because at that point, a lot of runners and a lot of studies have said that basically right at 5 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 15 degrees Celsius, it starts to become a danger to the lungs. And if you're breathing in cold air like that and you're not getting it out properly and the lungs are in duress and they're stressed out, you can actually have long-term damage. So it doesn't matter like how fit you are, how healthy you are, how much of a good runner you are, how much of a, like for me, I not so much now, but I used to do a lot of hiking. The physical human body at 5 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 15 degrees Celsius, it starts to put pressure on the lungs. Doesn't matter how healthy you are. Now, some lungs are a little bit used to something different, some lungs are not so, but that's kind of our middle ground. And then for Chewy and I, our cutoff, like, unless it's really needed, I don't think I'm gonna go out at 0 degrees Fahrenheit, which is minus 18 degrees Celsius. Because at that temperature, it just starts getting too cold. I can maybe get dressed up in some of the weather, the cold gear weather, but Chewy, his coat is good for that kind of weather, but we found that his pores can start getting frostbite. We found at 0 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 18 degrees Celsius, that's getting a little bit too cold to just be pleasurably meandering out for a walk for us. Right at that point is kind of our cutoff point. So we've got a beginning, we've got kind of a middle ground just to kind of keep an eye out, and then there's a cutoff point. Chewy, he can be out in that weather, not a problem. We had this massive storm come through. It was minus 35 degrees Fahrenheit, which I don't know in Celsius, but I think they both level out right around minus 40. Both of them become minus 40. And he went out for a little bit here and there, but it was his pores that were suffering. So his coat is good and his face is fine for a moment, you know, not the whole time, but his pores were getting a little bit frozen. You can see him lift up his pores. So with the Celsius and the Fahrenheit, it's quite easy to think 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius. So the zero on the Celsius. Then the middle ground, 5 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 15 degrees Celsius. And then the cutoff point for us is again the 0, but on the opposite side, 0 degrees Fahrenheit, which is minus 18 degrees Celsius. So we kind of go for the 0 Celsius, we start looking, the 0 Fahrenheit, we stop. At the end of the day, it's really what works for you, but that's kind of our beginning, our middle ground, and our cutoff points. Number 2, the factors that come into some of those temperatures and that can affect those temperatures is the environment that you're in. You know, is there a wind chill? When you add a wind chill to that, you can have a wind chill that decreases that temperature and makes it colder, but at the same time, when you're walking out in that wind chill, it is brutal, absolutely brutal. And that can, you know, wear on your face, can wear on your lungs, it can wear on the dog, you know, and his pores. Is it snowing? Is it a still day with blue skies? Because you do get a lot of that warmth from the sun, even if you're out in those negative degree temperatures. And then we're looking for our dogs. So the American Akita, you've got a lot of the snow dogs. Are they young? Are they puppies? Are they older, more senior dogs? Because senior dogs, are not able to survive in those harsh conditions as much as a 2-year-old, a 2-year-old adolescent. And a puppy, they're still growing, they're still grabbing, their coat is still they're still developing. So you've got young, old, adolescents that get up into all kinds of trouble whatsoever. And then also, are they, is a dog under the weather? Is a dog ill or sick? Because you also have to take into consideration for that too. So those are some kind of the factors that would affect some of those ranges of temperatures. Now, along with those factors, you also have acclimation and then possibilities of hypothermia and frostbite. Acclimation, because like I said before, with the temperatures, you can have dogs that are raised up in Canada where it's always very cold, or North Dakota, or those colder environments, or you can have a dog that was raised like in Florida or so that has moved. So if you're in those harsh conditions, where has that dog's environment mostly been? Because acclimation is key to a lot of different things. We had the winter come here, the temperatures plummeted, and for the first few days, Chewy was kind of going in and out a lot, and he was checking out the environment. And of course, as owners, we were also just keeping a real eye on him and just making sure nothing was too cold, because we did not have necessarily a range, even though he's a snow dog. So he's a snow dog, an Arctic, from the mountains of Japan originally, but what is his temperament? Where was he raised? The acclimation. It takes a moment to acclimate to the cold temperatures. And even did those cold temperatures come on all of a sudden like a storm? You don't just want to throw your puppy out there or go out walking. So number 3, the Akita breed. What is so special for them for cold weather temperature? The Akita breed, they have a really unique double coat. So underneath they have these short, very fibrous hairs that act as like an insulation, or like us humans would wear a base layer. That keeps them warm, it keeps the air trapped next to their skin, and it warms that air up. It also, in the summer, does keep them cool. That's why certain dogs that have the double coats, some dogs have double coats for like waterproofness, like Labradors, and some dogs have like double coats for some of the temperature or cold weather temperature. And so one of the things you don't want to do is shave them, because if you shave them, then that double coat can't grow back properly, and sometimes that can give a lot of problems. And then they have the outer layer, which is a little bit longer layer underneath that short layer, and that outer layer protects them from the snow. Like from Chewy, he can get soaking wet inside the snow, he can have snow all over him, he gets his nose in all the way deep up to his chest, and he runs around and he rolls around in the snow, and basically all he does a quick shake and everything just falls off. I'm not saying that he's not necessarily damp, but that outer layer stops that dampness coming into the inner layer and giving him a chill or any kind. Those outer coats, especially for the American Akita, keeps them somewhat clean. So the inner layer keeps them warm or cool during the summer. Their outer layer keeps them protected from like moisture, from dirt, even bugs, stuff like that. The second thing they have is special paws. Their paws actually have a web in between them. They're actually webbed paws. Again, a little bit like the hunting dogs for swimming, like a Labrador or so. But these guys have webbed paws for walking, especially on the snow. A little bit like when we wear snowshoes, it helps us navigate through the snow a lot easier. So they're definitely cold weather snow mountain dogs. Paws are really good for cold weather, but again, like I said, as owners, we got to keep an eye on our dogs and just make sure that it's not too cold for them. And one of the biggest things that you can see is if they start lifting their paws and favoring, like not standing on all four, but actually lifting the back, then the front, then it's starting to get a little bit too cold. Again, they're super smart dogs. So Chewy, this past storm that we had when the temperatures plummeted to like -35, -28, and he has to go out and do his business, you can see him standing there kind of getting ready to stop and lifting his paws to try and do his business. But you know, they're smart dogs, and as soon as he's done, he comes right back up onto the deck where it's a little bit warmer, takes his time, and then goes back out into the yard and goes play. And the unique, beautiful curly tail that the American Akita has. And I have read a few articles about that, because it is a unique tail compared to most dogs. When they are out in the snow and they're actually like out sleeping in the mountains in the snow from the history, they actually would curl up, and a lot of huskies would do this. They curl up, and that little curl of a tail, they actually stick their nose inside the curl of the tail, and that keeps their nose protected and some of their face protected. And so it's just a unique tail. That curly, beautiful tail that Mr. Chewy Boo struts around with is unique to the American Akita breed and unique to the cold weather snow doggies. And then the last thing for the Akita breed, this was also for the previous dog that I had, which was a Tibetan Mastiff Labrador mix. When it gets cold and the temperatures plummet, I always just try to feed Chewy and my previous dog just a little extra food in general, but also a little extra of the higher protein, higher fats. And that can be anything. That can be just some meat, like meat, you know, beef, ground beef. It can be a little bit of the fat from that. And of course, with food and water, again, water, keep them hydrated. A lot of us think that you have dehydration only in the summer. You can also have dehydration in the winter, especially at higher altitudes. And for our little fur buddies, we need to make sure that they are always hydrated. They always have access to water. And especially to the Akita breed, the American Akita breed, and some other breeds that are prone to this, with all the food and water, just make sure that when they're exercising or walking that we have some space between that, so that they don't end up with bloat, because a lot of American Akitas can be prone to bloat. So we do need to keep an eye on them. We need to look after them, because they do get so excited out in the snow. And they love to bounce around and play. And then they come back, they're hungry. I've noticed Chewy is extra hungry after he's been playing, but we do have to kind of keep that time after he's been playing, and even before that we let him out. There's an actual time limit before we start feeding him or letting him eat or drink a lot, because we just don't want to have the bloat. To conclude, part one, temperatures, the start, the middle, the kind of cutoff point, the factors that you have to take into consideration about really how cold is too cold, with being young or old or ill, the environment that we're in. And number three, you know, what is unique to the Akita breed and their temperament in how they're actually designed to be a snow weather winter mountain dog. But to conclude all of that, for the American Akita especially, they are very loyal, fierce, stoic dogs. And at the end of the day, as dog owners, our mountain fierce Akita breeds are still somewhat domesticated, and so we need to look after them. We need to look out for them. We need to be wise in everything. So this is what works for Chewy and I. I'm not saying that that's the temperatures that is too cold for your Akita, for your environment, for anything. It's what works for you, what works for us, and this is what works for us. American Akita breed is stoic and often silent. Like, we very, very rarely hear him bark or moan or complain or anything. And so I wonder, when there is negative, very, very cold temperatures, if the American Akita is suffering in any way or in any kind of undue stress, do they even let us know? As Akita owners, or as dog owners in general, we need to be extra vigilant about that and just keep an eye on our boos and watch out for them and just look after them and protect them as much as they protect us and look out for us. Keep living life wild, open.